Hi, welcome to the Data Science Coach channel. This is another episode in my series Python for Beginners. So for this tutorial, we are going to look at lists. A list is one of the data types that we use in Python. So when we talk about lists are linear collection of items. So they are created by putting items inside the square brackets, such as this one here. So these are examples of list objects. Individual items are separated by commas, and that is what we see here. And then lists can contain objects of different data types. So it can have strings, dictionaries, lists, and we can even have lists within lists, such as this one here. Okay, so with lists, you can access the items by using indexing. We will talk about all those things in the tutorial as we move on. So lists are mutable, so that means that we can always change the items in them. And then always new items are added to the tail that is on the right side, the end of the list. And then you can also perform iterations, and all items in the lists, if they are strings, you can also convert them to strings. Okay, so I will talk about all these things, so you don't need to worry. And let me also say that the notebook for this tutorial is available on my Patreon channel, so I will leave the link in the description, so you can use that to download the notebook, which has all the codes already made. So let's get started. So I'll start by first creating a list. So for beginners, don't worry, we are going to look at all these things. So I think just reproduce whatever you see and then you'll be fine. So if you're going to create lists, you can create with initial values, and you can also create an empty list. So we will start by creating a list with initial value. So let's just create one. So we will say my list equals, I will just enlarge this a bit so that we see. So we can say my list equals, with lists, the items are in square brackets, so we have to indicate our square brackets, and then we can start with our value. So let's just say we want to create a list with numbers. So let's say 1, 2, 3. So we have 1, 2, and then 3. So this is a list. So I can just display it, and that'll give me my list. So I have 1, 2, 3. So 1 is an item, 2 is an item, 3 is also an item. So that's what we have. Let's type another one. Let's say my list 2. This time let's say, okay, let's just say fruits. I think that'll be better. Let's say fruits. So we can have orange, we can have banana, let's say apple. So this is also a list. Let's just display it. I can say print fruits. Let's just try another one here. So this time let's say colors. So colors, we have red, we have blue, let's say yellow. This is also a list object, and we can print it. So that will give us our list object. So all these are lists that we created with initial values. You can also create lists that are empty. Okay, an empty list, basically, that's how we do it. We can create an empty list here. So we can just say empty list. I'm using any name. You can use any name of your choice. So this is an empty list. This one here is an empty list. So if it's an empty list, if you try to print it or display it, this is what you have. Okay, so this is how we create an empty list. Okay, so let's proceed. Now, if you have a list, let's just check. I'll check here to see what is next. Okay, yeah. So if you have a list, you can also get the number of items. That will be the next thing we will do here. I'll just get it done here. So if you have a list and you want to get a number of items in a list, we use the len function. So all these are list objects that we created. Now let's create another one and then use that. We want to get a number of items in a list. So let's say we have this list. Let's just use colors again. Or let's just say, yeah, colors should be fine. Let's say colors, red, blue, and we have yellow. So if we want to get a number of items in a list, or we can also say the length of the list, then we use the len function. So say len, and we add our list objects. So this is color. So this will give us the length. Okay. You can assign this operation to a variable. So if let's say I would like to use this number in another step, then I can just say number of items. Or this time, because we know we are dealing with colors, we can say number of colors. Because, and then we specify our len function with the colors. So this will give us the number of colors or the length or the number of items in a list. So this is how we get the number of items in a list. It's very, very simple and straightforward. So just make sure to learn Python. And by the way, I have another tutorial which shows you how to manipulate strings. So if you are new to Python, I will encourage you to watch that tutorial as well. The link to that video is in the description box. So let's proceed. So it's very, very simple. This is how we get a number of items in a list or the length of a list. Let me just put that here. Yeah, I'll add that also here for you too. No, so let's say length of a list. I'm just trying to get everything streamlined. Okay, so that's how we do it. Now let's continue. Let's move to the next activity, and that is counting the number of occurrences of items in a list. So we will do that here. Because sometimes you have a list object, you have a number of items in there, and you would like to count the number of occurrences of items in a list. So with the items, you can count the number of occurrences of items. You can count the occurrences for one item or multiple items or all items. So that's what I've listed here. So we have these three scenarios. So we will look at all of them one by one. So let's start with a single item. So I'll create a list again. So this time let's say fruits. Let's say we have apple. Let's say we have orange. Let's say we have pineapple. Let's say we have apple again. And then let's say we have banana. So if let's say we want to count the number of occurrences, how many times apple, the word apple or the fruit apple is here, okay, in this list, then it's simple. That's how we do it. We say fruits dot counts. So the fruits here refers to the list object. So if you have used a different name, you need to specify that here. For this one, the list object, the name is what? Fruit. So that's why I'm using fruit. So it goes like this: fruit dot count, and you can count whatever item that you want. So we have apple. So we say apple, and that will give us 2 because we have 2. We have this and then this. So apple occurs twice, and that is why we have that here. Okay, so this is how we count the number of occurrences for an item. That's a single item. Now let's try this. But before you try, you can always change this code. So you can experiment. So just go all out, try with different words or numbers or text. Just try. Okay. Yeah, before we even do that, let's also look at another example where we use numbers. So let's say numbers equals, let's say 1, 1, 3, 3, 3, or 5. Let's try with this. So if I have this and I want to get the number of times 3 occurs, so it becomes numbers.count. I'll say 3. So we have 3 occurring 3 times. So that's how we get it. And let me also say that with lists, you can combine numbers, and then also you can also add text. So I repeat, with list, you can combine numbers, you can combine strings, you can add other data types. So it's not just about a single data type in a list. You can have a mixture. Okay, so just experiment. So try and then create a list which has numbers and then strings and then other stuffs as well. So this tutorial is for beginners. So I'm trying to make things as simple as possible so that when you are done, you can always change some of these things. So just go all out. Okay, so we are done with counting the number of occurrences for one item, for a single item, for an item. Now let's look at multiple items. So it gets interesting here. So again, let's use 1 and 3. Okay, because this one we have everything here. It's clear. So let's say numbers. Let's say numbers 2. Or let's just say my numbers. That would be better. So if I have this is my numbers. This is a list. Let me display it again. So this is a list object. Now, if let's say I want to count the number of occurrences for 1 and 3. Okay, I'm not interested in 4 and 5. I want 1 and 3. There's a way to do it. Okay, so of course, here we are dealing with just a few items, 2 of them. Okay, so of course you can just do this. Let's say my numbers dot count 1, and you can also do my numbers count, let's say 3. Okay, you can do them like this. That is fine because it's just 2 items. But if you have, let's say you have a list with, let's say 500 items, and out of the 500 items you are interested in counting, let's say 20 or 30 of them, then it's going to be cumbersome trying to issue a command for each of these. Okay, so this is where loops come in. I'll cover loops in details in another tutorial, so just make sure to check that tutorial when it comes up. But I'll just give a simple one here. So let's just use this scenario. Let me just come back here. I'll just do this. Yeah, let's say, okay, this time let's say colors. That'll be simple. Let's say red, yellow, brown, let's say green, and then let's add another one. Let's say pink. Yeah, let's try this now. So let's assume that this one here is, this list has lots of items. Okay, now I'm just displaying with just a few items here so that we can easily understand it. So instead of just specifying the commands one by one for each item of each interest, for each of the items you want to count, you can issue a for loop. Okay, I'll issue that here. So here, let me just do this. I think I'll just add, so this approach 1, and then let me add this approach 2. Using a loop, I'm going to use a loop here, just a loop. So if let's say you have lots of items, then you can use a loop to count the items of interest. So let's say we are interested in, let's say red and then yellow. We want to count the number of times, the number of occurrences of these colors. Then you can issue a for loop. So that's how the for loop is going to be. You can first define your items of interest. Let's say items of interest, which is red and then yellow, like this. And then after you are done with that, then you can issue your for loop. So you can say for item in items of interest. And when you come here, you can say colors dot count item. Okay, that's how it's going to be. But of course, I made mention that you can assign operations to a variable. Okay, like this one, for example, if you are counting, you can assign the result to a variable. So this time, let's assign this operation to a variable here. So instead of just saying colors.count item, I can say count equals colors.count item. And then I can say print count. So let's look at this. Let's do this. So I can just issue this command, and then we will get a count for each of the items of interest, which is red and then yellow. So we have for item in items of interest, count is of colors that counts, and then print. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, so you can see that we have what? 2 and then 2 here. Okay, because when you count them, it's what? Red is what? Occurring twice. Yellow is occurring twice. So that's why we have 2 and a 2. If let's say we should add, let's say red, another one here. If I issue the command again, let me just do it again. If I issue the command, I'm going to get 3, 2 because I have what? 3 reds and then 2 yellows. That's what I have here. Now, that's what I have, but if you take a look at this, only the numbers were displayed. So if I have just these numbers, because I am writing the code, I wrote the code, I know what each of these numbers mean. But if a third party is watching, okay, let's say you are presenting, then it's advisable to make the results descriptive. And so what you can do is to issue a print statement to also display the item that you are counting. So this code, for example, we can improve it. Let me copy that here. Let's say add additional detail. So this code, for example, if I have it here, then here's what I can do. When I come here, I can just, from this line, I can say print, and then I can say item, comma, and then I say count. So let's run this command. So we have what? Red 3, yellow 2. So this time you can understand the numbers. So we have what? Red, we have yellow, and we have their respective numbers or their respective counts. And so by learning these little commands, you'll be able to write programs that are very complex. But it all starts from you learning the basics, and that is what I am teaching you. So you can always modify this. You can add additional statements and all that. And you can also check my video on string formatting that allows you to print numbers and strings and other stuff. So just check that and you learn how to issue print statements for different purposes. Okay, so this is the second situation where we count multiple items. Now, what about if you are interested in all the items? Then let's do it. If you're interested in all the items, then of course you can use a for loop also. And there are ways to go about this, but for this tutorial, I'll show you just one approach because I assume that a lot of people who will be watching this tutorial are beginners, so it's advisable for me to start with one, and then later you can experiment, you can explore other options. There are various options. You can use sets, loops, all those stuff, but I'll show you just one example here, which is very common and it's easy to implement. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So if you want all items, let's just come back again. Let's use the same colors again. If you want all items, then that's how we do it. We will use this particular utility here. So let's just import that here. Okay, I think I'll do that here rather. Yeah, I think I will start from scratch. Yeah. So if you want all items, you can use this utility called counters. So you can say from collections import counter. this particular utility here can help us count all the items. And of course, after counting all the items, you can decide to just select the ones you want for further processing. That one is up to you. So I'll start with this one here. And then after issuing it to import this model, then I will just also bring my colors. And then now I can say counter. And then I bring my brackets and I'll say colors. So let's run this command. So when you run it, it will count all the items for you and also give you the respective counts, like the one we have here. And so this one here, for example, if you have it, you can always make queries to find out what is the color of, or what is the number of occurrences for red, or the number of occurrences for yellow, for brown, etc. Now let's do this. Let's assign this operation, this counter operation, to another variable. So let's say counts equals, and then we bring our counter here. So when we are here, let's say print counts. Let's print this one. We have this. Okay, let's say type counts. We have this data type, but this data type is more like a dictionary object to me. But anyway, that's fine. That doesn't matter here. We are going to look at it. So what we have here is what's a key value pair. Okay, that's why I made mention of dictionary. I'll talk about dictionaries in another tutorial also. So when you have this result, this output, then you can always ask, what is the number of occurrences for red? How many times does red occur? How many times does yellow occur? So how do we do that? We have the result here. So you can say counts. We bring our square brackets and we can say red. And this will give us 3. So that means that we are looking for the number of occurrences for red. So this will give the answer to us. If you want, let's say pink count, and this time we say pink, and it will give us 1, because pink occurs just 1. If you check manually, let's inspect, pink occurs once here, just 1. Okay, so this is how we use the counter model to count all items in a list. And of course, when you have it like this, you can always select the ones that you want and then use them for further process, or even save them to an output file. That one is up to you. But anyway, let's proceed. So this is how we count items, or we count the number of occurrences of items, or the number of items in a list. Anyhow you want to put it. And there's a count there. So let's proceed. So let's continue. It's very, very simple and easy once you understand the concept. Okay, now let's move on to adding items to a list. So let's do this. If you want to add items to a list, this is how we do it. Let's start from here. I'll show you 2 approaches, the append and then the insert. So let's start with the append. So let's use, let's say numbers, or let's say, yeah, we are dealing with programming, right? So let's say programming languages, we have Python, of course, we have to bring it. We have R, let's say Java. So we have these languages. Now let's just take a look at it. We have them. So if, let's say this, you are creating this list, you have 3 here, or maybe let's say it's even empty, that's fine. Then you decide that there's another language missing. We have Python, we have R, we have Java. Let's say we want to add Ruby or Perl. Then we can use the append function to do that. So we can say languages dot append, and then we indicate what we want to append. Let's say Perl. So now if you query, or if you print the list again, the list object again, you're going to have it added. So with list, items are added to the tail, the end. That is the right side, this side here. So it's always adding and adding. Let's add another one. let's say languages dot append. This time let's say Ruby. So now languages, and I'll have Ruby also there. Okay, so you always add to this side. That's for lists. There's another object called the queue, which also provides additional functionality. So that one you can append to left or right. There are other things you can do, but I will cover that in another tutorial. I'll go into details. So I just take note that if, let's say, you want to append to the left, there's a way to do that using the dequeue object, which I'll talk about later, or I'll just leave some links in the description where you can use to read more about that. So that is, so this is how we append. We add items to a list using the append function. Now let's look at the insert. Let's use the insert this time. Instead of Python, R, Java, let's use another list. Let's say we have let's try. Okay, let's use fruits again. Fruits, or let's say my fruits. Let's say I want to go and do shopping. So I'm going to buy apple. I'm going to buy orange. I'll also buy pineapple. These are the 3 fruits I'm going to buy. Now let's check. I have my fruits. Now, if let's say I want to add another item, let's say I forgot to add banana. I have to buy banana. I forgot to buy it. But then banana, I want it to be in this position. The second position here. Okay. This is index 2. Sorry, this is index 1. So in Python, counting starts from 0. Okay, I've already covered indexing in another tutorial. That's the list. So you can just check that video and then get more understanding of it. But I'll also cover it briefly in the later part of this tutorial. So I have my fruit. So if you are using the insert function, the insert allows you to add, okay, to a particular position, a particular index. Okay, if this is the first item, this is the second item, this is the third item. If let's say the new item I want to add, I want it to be number 2, I want it to be the second item, then this is where we use the insert function. When you use the append, it always sends it to the last, or it sends it to the end. But this time I want it to go to a particular position, a particular index. So if let's say I want it to be here, then let's look at how we do it. So let's try this. So my fruits, I want to add banana. So I can say my fruits dot insert, and I indicate the position. Let's say, or index. Yeah, in Python, let's just use the word index. So I have index 1, which is this one here, and then I'll say banana. Now let's say my fruits. So what do we get? Banana is where? Occupying that index. Okay. So because 1 here represents position 2. Okay. Again, I repeat, in Python, counting starts from 0. So the first position here is -1. That is 0. The second position is -1, which is 1. So 0, 1, 2, upwards. Okay. That's how we do. So that's why I use 1, because 1 here, the index 1 here represents the second position, or in this case, the second item. Okay, so by indicating 1, that means that Python will come here and then it will insert it here and then push the orange to the other side, to the right side. And when this happens, then the others will be affected. So pineapple, for example, it now becomes item number 4. First, or formerly, it was item number 3, but because we added this here in this position, it has shifted all of them. So this is another way. So you can use append if you don't really care about the index, or let's say where the item should be, and you are okay with it being placed at the end of the list, okay, the current list, then you can use append. But if you are interested, or you want to be specific, or you want the item to be placed in a specific position, or let's say you want it to be in a particular index, okay, then you need to use the insert function and then specify where you want the item to be inserted. So take note of that. So these are two scenarios. So we have append, we have insert. Again, just practice. You can always change the values here. Let's say 0 or 2 or 1 or whatever. So just experiment with the numbers, experiment with the entries here, and then just see how it goes. Okay, you will see different outputs, which will also be good because it's all part of the learning process. So let's continue. Okay, now let's look at the next activity, and that is replacing items in a list. So how do we replace items? Okay, we are not talking about removing, we are replacing. Okay, now let's go back. Okay, I think I'll still use the fruits. Let's use this, my fruits again. I'll do that here. Replacing items. Okay, let's say you have these items. Okay, you have these items, you are going to buy them, I mean your fruits, and then you realize that you don't need orange, but rather you want banana. So you would like to replace. So if you would like to replace, then you can use the index. Okay, you can specify the index and then assign a value to that. So if you want to replace, you bring your list objects, in this case my fruits, you indicate the item you want to replace with its index. So here the index is 1. Again, if you are confused about indexing, check my tutorial on strings. I've explained indexing there in detail, so please check that and you understand the indexing scenario here. So please check that video out. The link is in the description box. Okay, so I have fruits. This is orange. I want to replace it with banana. The index for orange is 1. So I'll indicate 1 and I'll say equals, and then I bring banana. So now if I say my fruits, I have banana being indicated there. Okay, so that's how we replace items in a list. Of course, there are other approaches, I mean, that you can use for replace, depending on what you want at the end of the day. And so just this is a basic one, which as a beginner, you will always understand and you can always implement, you can always reproduce. So make sure you use this approach as a beginner, practice it until you get a hang of things and you can explore other ways of replacing items in a list. Okay, so let's continue. Let's try one more time. Let's say, okay, this time let's use colors again. Let's refresh. Red, blue, yellow. Let's see. Let's replace, let's say, red. Okay, so I say colors index 0, and I'll say black. So now if I say colors, it's gone. And you should also know that with this approach, the original list is what is being modified. Okay, so if you have your data sets and you are working on it, it's advisable to make a copy of it and then modify that. So this one, ideally, we should have created a copy of it and then modified it. But this is a tutorial, so I just want to keep it simple. But if you have your own data set and you are manipulating, and just as a backup, make a copy of the original data, which is, let's say, my fruit, or let's say colors, and then the copy of it, you can modify that as you see fit. Of course, I will show you how to make copies of lists. So let's continue. Okay, how to convert a string to a list. That is our next activity. So let's look at how we can convert a string to a list. So if you want to convert a string to a list, then that's how we do it. I've talked about string already, but I'll just do something here. So let's say my string equals, let's say, Python. And I want to convert this to a list. I can just say lists. Let me just put it here. I can say lists, my string. This is a reserved word. and then I'll get it in this form. Okay, so this will convert a string to a list for me. Okay, it's very, very simple and straightforward. Now, if you want to convert a list to a string, and here your list objects, okay, all the items should be strings. That's the condition. So if you have a situation like this, let's use Python again here. I think it's straightforward. Let's say my language equals Python. So if I take a look at this, all the items here are string objects because we have the quotes. They all have the quotes. So in this situation, it's easy to convert, or it's possible to convert this list to a string because all the items here are strings. So to do that, you have to bring your quotes, single or double quotes. I like to use single quotes. And then you can say dot join. And then you say my language, which would be the lists. And then you can execute it, and that will give you what? A string. If there is a non-string object here, then your command is going to fail. So just try it. You can try this. Instead of python, you can just change this string here and here to 1. Okay, minus the quotes. And then you get something. You get something interesting. So you have an error because 1 is not a string unless it's in quotes. So just experiment. So that's where you change things, and then you can see how the effect that your changes have on the output. So just try it, and then just enjoy the show. Okay, of course here I use these quotes, single quotes here, the first and then the end. Okay, without anything here because I don't want a separator. But if you want a separator, okay, something to separate the entries like what you have here, then you can add that. So let's try this. Let's say you have, let's say quotes. Let's use quotes. Let's say quotes. I have this C002, C004. This is C005. These are quotes and these are strings. So in this case, if I want to convert everything to a string and I want each of these entries to be separated by, let's say, a comma, then I can say comma. It should also be a string dot join. I can say quotes, and then I'll get everything for me. So this strategy here can be used to store items into a CSV file. I repeat, this strategy here can be used to store items or to store your outputs. Let me just use that word, to store your outputs to a CSV file, because CSV files, you have comma separated values. So that means that each of these values will be separated by a comma. So once you have it like this, then you can just save to an output file. So it's very, very simple and then straightforward. You can also use a new line. I mean, as for the separator, it's a matter of choice. Let's try again here this time. Let's see with a new line. Let's see. So this is a new line. So this time around, I have to print it. I will just do that here, and then I'll get it done for me. If you can also try with a tab, that is /t, and then you have it this way. So this one, that means you are saving to, let's say, a CSV file, that is tab separated values. So just go all out, experiment, and then you'll be fine. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, now let's look at searching for items in a list. So with searching, I'll show you just one approach. With searching and also more like checking for the presence or absence of items in a list. I will just put it that way because it's going to be a pretty straightforward one. It's very simple, and there are other ways to search. There are better ways to search for items in a list if the search is complex, but that's something that we will cover in a little. For now, it's just a simple command we are going to use. Now this time, let's use I think let's use the fruits again. I think fruits are healthy for the body, so let's use it to encourage people to take fruits. So let's say you are going to buy your items, your fruits. You want to go to the grocery store, buy your fruits. Now you have your list here. you want to check if all the items that you want to buy, you have written it down. In this case, we are programming, so we have indicated them here. So let's say you want to check if apple is available or it's present in your list, which is here. Then you can say apple in my fruits, and you get true. So true means there is apple. Now what about banana? Do we have banana? Let's check. Banana in my fruits. It's false because there is no banana here. There's no banana here. Okay, so this is how we do it. With a searching, okay, this one is more like checking for the presence or absence, but I just use the word search here so that people also get to have an idea of what it is. But what we are doing now is more like checking for the presence or absence of items. But for searching itself, you can use regular expression and other stuff to search. And if you have Panda data frame, there are other ways to go about it. But these are things that I'll cover in a separate tutorial. For now, we are dealing with the basics. So make sure to learn the basics and then you can build it up from there. Okay, so let's continue. This one was quick and I liked it. Now let's go to accessing items in a list, indexing and slicing. By the way, the indexing and slicing, it's similar to how we do it in strings, in string objects, and I've covered it in detail in strings. So again, just check the description box, find a video on strings, and then I give a detailed explanation and demonstration for indexing and slicing. So this one, I'll just make it quick, and then I'll encourage you to watch my video on strings where I did a detailed explanation and then demo for this particular section. So just make sure you do that. Okay, so accessing items. So if you're accessing, we use indexing and slicing. So if you want to access an item or items, you specify an index or a range of indexes, start and end, and in some cases a step or stride. So I'll just do a few here. So I believe once I'm done with this, you will understand this section here that I talked about, the replacing of items. Okay, so this time again, let's see. Okay, this time let's use programming languages. I'll just do this. Languages. Okay, I'll just do a copy and paste here, but don't do a copy and paste. If you are watching and you are starting programming, never do a copy and paste. I repeat, you should always type everything as you see. It's very, very important. You should always type, because by typing, by reading, reproducing, it helps a lot. So gradually you will pick it up. So I have languages equals, and then I paste this there. We are looking at indexing and slicing. So if let's say I want to find out which programming language is in position 2, I made mention that in Python counting starts from 0. So position 2 here means that you have an index of 1. Okay, so this is 0, this is 1. This is 0, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And so position 2 here is index 1. So if I want to get, let's say, index 1, I can say languages. I want to find out what is there. I can say languages 1. And that is R. Okay. So this time I didn't specify anything. I just indicated the index, which is 1 here. If I want, let's say, index 4. Index 4, that is languages 4. That's Ruby. Okay, so indexing 4 here means that the 5th item number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is what Ruby. That's what we have here. Okay, so it's very simple and straightforward. So I'll move on to the next one, which is, let's do this. Yeah. Okay. So here I specified one index, but you can also indicate a range of indexes. Okay. Let me just put this here. Yeah, let me just say a single index. Okay, now if you want a range of index, let's add this. So start end. Then in that situation, we come to the next one. We add m and an n. So the first one, single index, we use just this m here. Okay, we specify just one value. But if you want a range, okay, then it's going to be m and then n. So let's try that. So m and n, let's try. Let's do this. Okay, I think let's use colors rather, because I think I had lots of colors here. I'll use this here. You can also use any entry of your choice. So let's say I have this. Let's say I want to get the items, okay, from start and an end. Now, you should also know that when you are using the start and end, like what I have here, then the last one, which is the end, it should always be, you should take note that that value, that index, the item there will not be returned. So what will be returned is m up to n minus 1. That is end minus 1. Anyway, let's take a look at it here. I think once we do that, you understand. So let's say I have colors 0. That starts up to, let's say, 4. Let's execute this command. We have what? Red, red, yellow, yellow. So why do we have red, red, yellow, yellow? So we have 0 to 4. So 0 to 4 as a beginner, you may think it has to be what? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But then what was returned was what? 0, 1, 2, 3. The 4 was not added because that is the behavior of Python. So for the ending, the end index, that one will not be returned. But what will be returned is what? The index before this value. So in this case, it was 3. So in reality, what we were requesting for was 0 to 3. So the 4 here is more like a boundary so that Python doesn't go beyond that. So you should always note that the end index will not be returned, but the index before it will be returned. So if let's say we want 0 up to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, then we should add 1 here. So we should rather make it 5. Okay, so if what we want is from 0 to 4, that's what we really want, then we should make this one 5 so that we get up to the 4. So now we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, sometimes you don't want the starting, you want something in between. So it's also possible to do that in Python. So you can also say colors, let's say 3 to, let's say, 5. So that means you want 3 and then 4. So we have that here. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3. That's 3. And this is 4. And that's what we have here. Okay, so just experiment and then see how things goes. Now, what about start, end, and then the step? Let's do that here. Step or stride. Okay, let's try this. Yeah. We are still using the colors. I'll just requit it again. For me, I'm allowed to do copy and paste, but for you watching, no, you don't have to copy and paste. You have to type everything. Okay, so just type. Okay, so I have everything. So with the start, end, and then step, and then stride. Let me correct this. What this means that we have our region, our index of interest, but then instead of getting everything, we want intervals. Okay, so let's take a look at this situation here. I'll just do this for us to see what I'm talking about. So let's say colors, I have 0, 6, and then let's say 3. I'll use this to explain. So this is the start, this is the end, and then this is the step or stride, which I also say it's an interval. Let's run this. Okay, so here I have 0, 6. So you expect that I'll have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But because of this third value, something changes. So the third value here represents a stride or interval. And so that means that after this starts, the starting point, which is 0, red, the rest will have an interval of 3. So that means that the third counts from the current item should be returned. So here we had 0, that starts. So from here, you have to go 1, 2, 3, and that's what's yellow. Okay, and because the range is what? 0 to 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what is the region of interest, but we want intervals of 3. So here we go 1, 2, 3. But when you come here, 1, 2, 3. This 3 is outside of this range because it's outside. We want up to, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want up to this one, this 5. Okay, but the third one here, when we count the second interval, it's here and it's beyond, it's outside the range, and that is why we will not have green being returned to us. We only have this. But if you want this to be returned, that means that you have to increase the range. So let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6. So we want, in reality, what we want is what? 0 to 6 with interval of 3. Then we just increase this. So now let's run this command. Okay, let me just do this in a separate line. Let's maintain this. Let's go to another line. Let's say colors 0, 7, 3. So now we have green. So this one is useful if you want a certain interval, or if you want a certain item. Sometimes you can have these hackathons and all that. That will tell you, give maybe the third value. Maybe you have an interval you're supposed to count, and every third value, or every fourth value, or every fifth value, return that or process that. So there are ways to do about it. So this allows you to do certain kinds of activities, certain kinds of queries. It allows you to obtain certain values without you having to get all the items and further processing them. Okay, so just experiment and then you'll be fine. Okay, so that's how we use the stride or the step as well. So you can use that to do whatever you want. Okay, now let's look at negative indexing. Negative indexes are used to access the last item or items of a list. So let's take a look at an example. Let's go back. Let's take a look at it here. Yeah, so again, negative indexing is used to access last items of a list. Again, let's use languages, because this is a programming lesson. And then let's see. So I'll paste it here again. Again, for you watching, you are not allowed to copy and paste. You have to type everything. Okay. So if I want to access the last item or items, I use negative index. For negative indexing, counting starts from 1. So if let's say I want the last item, which is Ruby, I can say languages -1. And that'll give me Ruby. Okay, that'll give me Ruby. That's the last one. If I want this one here, okay, second from last, then languages, that'll be what? -2. Okay, if I want, let's say languages -4, so let's say -2. Let's try this. We have what? R and Java. So -4 is what? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then -2 is what? 1, 2. But again, always the index before the last is what we will get. So that's why I have R and Java. So this is what? Negative indexing. Okay. Now let's look at shorthand indexing. So shorthand indexing is done by omitting either the first or last index. So how do we do that? Let's try that also here. So I have 3 examples here. So let's look at the first one. It says L:(n). That means we start a slice from the beginning up to the index just before n. So again, let's use languages. I'll just, I think I'll rather use color because that has lots of entries, and I'll use that. So let's go back and then just paste it here. Okay, so let's look at the first one here. That's what we're looking at. So let's say colors up to 4. If I do this, that means 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's what will be returned to us because the fourth one, this number 4 here will not be returned. Okay, it's -1, so we'll get up to 3. So this here means that you are starting up to this point. Now let's look at the second scenario here. LM is 2. So that one, what do we do? Okay, let me just put this somewhere here. Let's look at the second one, which is LM:. So that one means you have a starting point. So the starting point up to the end of the list. That's what this one means. So I can say colors, let's say 5. So that will start from index 5 up to the end. So when we run it, we'll get this brown, green, pink, red up to the end. So we start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is brown, up to the end. That is what we have here. And of course, all these operations you can assign to variables as well. So you can just say maybe subsets. Let me just try this. Colors 5 is 2. And then I can just check the subsets. So I have that here. So you can do a subset of this. Of course, we have just been typing the command straight away, but you can assign the operation, the entire operation, to a variable, so that if, let's say, you want to use that subset for another thing in your program, then you can just call that variable and then get access to the information that you extracted. So that's how we do it. It's very, very simple and straightforward. Now let's continue. Sometimes instead of the item, you will like the index of the item. Okay, so how do we get the index? Let's do this. Let's say my fruits again. This one is straightforward, so I'll just do 1. Let's say fruits, orange, banana, orange. Let's add apple. Okay. So if let's say I want to get the index for, let's say, banana, then becomes my fruit.index, and then I call banana. So I have 1. Okay, that's the index for banana. We have 0 and then 1. And you should also know that Python is case sensitive. So this banana here is different from this banana. Okay, it's different because here is what? Capital B, here is lowercase b. So these are different, and that is why here you have error. It says banana is not in list because what we have is what? Uppercase B. So take note of that. I'll now proceed. So this is just by the way. Okay. Now, what about if I want the index for orange? Let's try it. My fruits dot index orange. What do we have? 0. Okay, so we have 0, which is orange. But there is another orange here. So then why did Python not return this other index? So this one will be 0, 1, 2. So we should have 0 and then 2. That's because it returns just the first item it sees. Okay, the first item that it sees as the hit. Okay, so even though we have 2 oranges, when it came here, just saw an orange. So after that, Python stops. It doesn't go again because it sees it and it says this is what I have. So I will stop. I will return that. There are other ways to get all items in a list, and there are other approaches, but for now, as a beginner, just use this and then you can later explore. And if you also have other challenges too, you can always contact me and then we'll sort out whatever issues you have. Okay, so that's how we get the index. It's simple and then straightforward. So I'll move on. Let's look at sorting. Sorting a list. Let's look at that also here. So with sorting a list, you can sort in ascending order or descending order. Again, there are ways you can sort, but I'll show 2 approaches here. Now let's start with the ascending order. Let's say I have my numbers 10, 8, 5, 1. Let's just say 1, 5. Let's say 19. I have 8. Okay, I have these numbers here. Yeah, let me just make this let's say 4. Yeah, you can change the numbers as well. So I have these numbers. If I want to sort in ascending order, then one approach is to use the sort function, which is the inbuilt list. So I can say the list objects that's numbers.sort, and then I can print it. So I'll get this one here, which is the ascending order. But if you use this approach, then the original list is modified. And so there's a way to actually create a copy and then process that copy. And that one uses the sorted function, which is here. So I'll just use the same numbers here. This time, I'll say sorted numbers. So this one returns a copy. And so if you print the original list objects, you have your original order. Okay, so if you don't want to modify the original list object, then you can use the sorted. And with the sorted, you can assign that operation to a variable. Okay, so I can say it is sorted lists equals sorted numbers. Then I can print it. So I'll have this, and I also have my original values intact. Okay. With the sorting, you can also sort in alphabetical order. Let's say, yeah, let's use Python again, or let's say languages. I think I had it here. I'll just type here languages. Or let me just use alphabetical order. Let's use alphabets. So A, C, B, let's say Z, D. Let's use this. Okay. Or let's say my letters. Yeah. So my letters, the sorts, and then my letters. Let me do that here. Supposed to be this, and there's a code. So I have A, B, C, D, Z. Okay, so it has been done nicely for me. Of course, this approach will modify it. So if you don't want to modify it, then you can just use the sorted, and then just say sorted my letters, and that will give you everything. So a copy is what to be modified. Okay, now let's try with reverse. That's a descending order. Yeah, let me say descending order. So descending, let's use descending order. We've done ascending, let's use descending order. I'll still use the same numbers here. So if it's descending, let's start with the first approach where we modify the original one. So I can say numbers dot sort. I'll say reverse equals true. So if I take a look at it, I have what? So that means it sorts and then gives you the descending. That's the reverse, because when you sort, we get ascending. So the reverse is the descending. That's the logic behind it. Of course, you can also use the sorted one. So if I want to use the sorted function like this, I can also say sorted numbers, and I'll say reverse equals true, and I'll get that also here. So your assignment, try with the alphabet here, the letters here, and then see what comes up. Okay. Sometimes you don't want to sort in ascend or descend order. You just want the original list. You want the reverse of that original list. Okay, so you can do that here. So again, let's use an old entry here that we use. Let's say, yeah, let's use my fruit again. I'll copy that. I'll use that. You want the reverse. Okay, so this reverse is different from the one that we sort and get the reverse. This one is the reverse for the original item. So let's say you have this. If you want the reverse, then let's see. And by the way, so the reverse, okay, I think this one I did not cover it, but you can just do it yourself. The reverse, I'll show you two approaches. Let's go back. Let's check the reverse. Let's check. Yeah. So the reverse, I'll show you two approaches. So the first one, you can see my fruits dot reverse. Let me see this approach one. I will just change this. So you can say my fruits dot reverse. Of course, this one will modify the original list objects. Okay, so the reverse. So now apple comes orange, banana, orange. But if you don't want to modify the original objects, then you can simply issue this command, which I find very, very cool. Let's try this. This approach too. I think I'll bring this here rather. I'm just formatting the notebook. Okay, so let's look at approach 2. Okay, so let's just say my fruits 2. Let's use this one here. So approach 2, you call the list objects and you say dots, not dots, colon, 2 colons and then -1. So this will give you the reverse. Okay, so this one will return a copy that has been reversed. So this one, when you use it, the original list objects will not be modified. So if you want to maintain the original list objects, then you can use this approach to get a reverse of a list. Okay, so that's how we do it. Now let's proceed. Now let's look at how to delete items from a list. I'll give 3 scenarios here. So you can delete items by indexing. So that means that you specify the indexing and then the item will be deleted. Okay, so let's try that. We have our fruits here. I'll use the fruits here again because I think we can do it. So if I want to delete by indexing, I have to specify the index that I want to the index of the item I want to delete. So if let's say I want to remove banana, the index of banana is what? 1. So I can say del my fruits and I say 1. So now if I say my fruits, banana is gone because I use this del command here. So that's how we delete by indexing. So we specify the indexing here. Okay. Now let's look at deleting item by value. You can try with other values. I will encourage you to just modify these values and see what comes up. Let's try with deleting item by value. So again, let's use fruits. This time, let's say my fruits 2. I'll use my fruits 2 here. So if I want to delete by value, then I have to say the list object or remove. So this time, let's say I want to remove orange. So I say my fruits 2 dot remove, and I specify what I want to remove. So let's say I want to remove orange. So I'll execute this command. So now let's query. Let's say my fruits 2. We have what? Banana, orange, and apple. You will notice that here we have 2 oranges. Okay, and you said you want to remove the orange. So maybe you are expecting that all of them will be removed. No. The default behavior of Python when dealing with lists is that the first occurrence, the first hits. Okay, it's just like how we were looking for the index and we got just one. So here again, it just looks at the first occurrence and then it removes it. So if you want to remove it again, you have to reissue this command again to remove the second one and all that. There are other ways to remove things, lots of things. You can remove them using other commands as well. If you have lots of entries, lots of items you want to remove, you can use loops and other approaches to remove them. But these are things that I'll cover in detail in another tutorial. For now, as a beginner, just make sure you are conversant with these ones, and then it will be easy to learn the other approaches to remove items. Okay. So now we have removed item by value. So that means the actual value. What about deleting and return the deleted item? Sometimes you would like to delete the item, but you also want a copy of that item to be returned to you. Okay, so for that one, we use the pop. So let's try this. Let's use the my fruits again. This time, let's say my fruits 3. So with the pop, we use the indexing. So if let's say I want to remove, let's say apple, I want to remove it from this list, but I also want to keep a copy. Maybe I'll use that copy for another thing. I can say, let me just do this. I can say my fruits 3 dot pop. I indicates this is what 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3. That's index 3. Okay, so the pop will remove it and return it to me. Now, if I say my fruits 3, I'll get this one here. Okay, because it has been removed. So the difference between the pop and then the del is that with the del, it removes it completely. It doesn't return the deleted item to you, but the pop or the pop will return it for you. So I could have assigned this operation to a variable. So I can just, let me just use the my fruits 3 again. And then this time I'll say deleted equals my fruits 3 dot pop. So now I say print deleted, and I'll get apple. So this is useful if you are going to use the deleted item in some part of your program. So just experiment and see. Now let's proceed. So let's move on to the next step, which is, or the next activity, which is creating a copy of a list. So I'll show you 2 approaches that you can use to create a copy of a list. Of course, some operations also create copies, but you can also do that here. So let's use the copy method. So let's say This time let's use colors: red, blue, black. If let's say I want to make a copy of this, I can say, let's say copied list. It will be the list objects, which in this case is colors dot copy. Okay, you can do it like this. And now I have my copied list. Okay, so if you make a copy, then you can now modify the copied list, okay, the way you see fit. So you have your original list, and then you can also have your copy list, and you can modify this copy list. And if something goes wrong, you can always go back to the original list and then make another copy or process that one. So there's one approach to create a copy of a list. Let's look at the second approach, which is the extend method. So the extend method, it can be used to make a copy, and it can also be used to combine other lists together. So in this situation, I'm just using it as a copy, but you can use that to also combine items from different lists. So for the extend, let's just use this scenario here. Good, I think I'll just try that here. So let's say I have this list. So if you want to use the extend method, you need to already have an existing list. Okay, so because you are making a copy, I'll say new, let's say new copy. I'll just use an empty list here. And then you can say the lists new copy dot extend. And then you bring what you want to copy or what you want to take. So you need to have the list, an empty list, and then that list is what we are going to use. So let's just take it like this. Let's say you have, let's say, a container that can be used to store water. So what you do is that you open that container and then you bring in the water. Okay, and then so in that instance, opening and then accepting that new water is the what extend. Okay, or just take it like maybe, let's say a python. Yeah, a python, the animal python swallowing another animal. Okay, so it swallows and then that animal now becomes part of the python. So just take that as what the extend. So you have your list objects here, the copied one or the new one, and then the extending means it has opened its mouth and it has swallowed that other list. But this time it's just making a copy. That's what I'll say. So it's just making a copy, not like modifying the original. It's just a copy, but I'm just trying to use some of these concepts to let you have a visual representation of what this means. Okay, so when you use the extend, it makes a copy, and then let me just do it again. We have it here, so it makes a copy. So now I can say new copy, and I'll get my red, blue, and black. Okay, so with the extend method, it's not only for copying, but you can also use that to combine list objects, different list objects into a single one. Okay, so let's just try that one here. I think that will be a bonus for you. Let's say I have list 1, 1, 2, 3. I have, let's say, list 2, apple, orange, let's say banana. I have these lists. I have list 1, I have list 2. So if I want to merge them, I want to combine this. Okay, so that means I want a copy of this and a copy of this all in a single list form, into a single list. I can just say, let's say my new lists, and I can say my new lists dot extend list 1, and then let's just do this first. Yeah, and then my new lists dot extend list 2. Now I can just come and say my new list and then I'll have it here. So this is the bonus tip. Okay, that's the other approach. Okay, so this just a bonus, by the way. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, so now we will look at the other one, which is iterating over a list. So let's look at how that can also be done. So if I want to iterate over a list, there are a couple of ways to do that, but for this tutorial, we will use two approaches. We will use the for loop, and we are also going to use a list comprehension. So with the for loop, we've already done one here, which I didn't explain into details. We did one somewhere here. It's a similar thing. Let's check it. That was somewhere here. Let's check. Yeah, that was for this section there, counting the number of occurrence of items. We just use a for loop here. So I'll just do it here and then use that to explain. So let's say I have my fruit again. Let's use this one here. These three, yeah, these three should be fine. Let's say fruits. I have that here. So I have fruits. So if I'm iterating, that means I want to go over all the items here. And so I can say for I in fruits, print I. I have this. Now this is where some people get confused because of this I. Now this I is a placeholder. Okay, because we are using a loop and we are iterating, the I here represents each of these items here. Okay, so that means for every member of this list item, I want to what print. Now this, let me just go over again. I think I was too fast. So let's do this. I said for I in fruits. Now this statement is a block statement, so I have to bring a colon. And then the next line, I can add my other command. So this time, what I wanted to do, or what I'm doing is I want to print the I. That is this fruits here, the fruits here, the items. So the I is representing each of them. So just take a look. Let's take a look at this situation here, where we have, let's say a box of pens. Let's say you have a box which has, let's say, 10 pens. And now what you want to do is to take each of these pens, and then you just want to look at the pen. Just check the color and then put it somewhere. So you are picking the pens. You are picking them one by one. So that is what this for I means. So you are picking them one by one. Of course, if you are picking with a single hand. Yeah. So at each point in time, the pen in your hand become different, or it's different because you pick one pen with your hand and then you put it down and then use that same hand to pick the other pen. Okay, so just take a look at this as your hand. The for I is your hand, so it is the same hand that you are using to pick. So the for I here picks one apple. Yeah, let's say the fruit. Yeah, this apple here, which is, let's say, pen 1, it puts it down. And then therefore I again comes and picks this orange, which is the other pen. It puts it down and comes for this one also. So therefore I is a placeholder, just as you use your single hand to pick all those pens, the different pens or the different items in that box. So instead of I, we can use, let me just do it this way. Instead of I, where sometimes become confusing, you can also say for fruits in fruits. Okay, so for fruit in fruit, that one becomes easily understandable because we are looking at all the fruits. So you can say for fruit in fruits, print fruits. And this is also will be done for you because it's a placeholder. Okay, it's a place, just as we use the single hand to be picking the pens from the box. It's a placeholder. So you can use any name of your choice. You can even say for item in fruits, print items. So the only thing is that whatever you issue here, you should make sure it's the same name you are using here, then you'll be fine. Okay, so that's how we do it. So of course here you can also add other commands here. Okay, now we are only printing. We are using just the print command. So you can always come back and then just look at it. Let's say we have this one here for item in fruits. Let's say you want to print, you can say maybe current item is, and you can say for item, or let's say current fruits. I mean, it depends on what you want at the end of the day, and then you can print it. Okay, so current fruit is apple, current fruit is orange, current fruit is banana. Okay, you can also change this to, let's say, item. It's all a matter of choice, and then you can get it done. So this is how we use the for loop to iterate over lists. Now let's look at the other one, which is list comprehensions. Let's take a look at that here. So list comprehensions is a shorter syntax for iteration over a list. It can also be used to create new lists. Okay, new lists from other lists. There are things you can do with list comprehension. So for this tutorial, I'll just use it for iteration. So let's use this this time. Let's say numbers. Okay, let's say my numbers equals 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this would be a good example. So for list comprehensions, it goes like this. We have our square brackets, and we can say for number in, not this one. Yeah, let's do it again. So for list comprehensions, you'll bring your square brackets, and then inside the square brackets, you issue your statement. So you can say number for number in my numbers. Okay, so basically we are saying that we want the number, okay, each of them for number in my numbers, just put that number in it. Okay, so just like how we did here, this one's here, yeah, okay, and then we just do that here. Let's just issue this command. Here, of course, let me just use the fruit, also the fruit scenario here. I think that will also help because we have already used that. So let's say I have fruits. Let's say I have fruits. I can say fruits for fruits in fruits. Yeah, and you have that here. So here we have for fruits in fruits, which is this one here. Let's take a look at that. Okay, I didn't for item. Yeah, so for fruits in fruits, this time we use item, but you can also use fruits. Okay, for fruits in fruits, let's just use item. Okay, let's say item for item in fruits. Yeah, I think that to be better. Item for item in fruits. So if you take a look at this one here, for item in fruits, that is what we have indicated here. And then we have what? Here we said what? Print item. By this time, we are not printing, we are creating a copy. Okay. Or iterating, if you also say it that way. So we just bring that item. So that placeholder is what we bring here. And then it's done nicely. So that's how we do it. So you can assign this entire operation also to a variable. That is if you want to make a copy. So I can say my copy. And then you can assign that whole operation to a variable. And then you can now call that copy. Okay. So this is also another way to make copies of lists. I think I showed two approaches here. Let's check here. Yeah. You can also use this to create a copy and then process it. Now let's look at something else. Aside the copying, okay, aside iterating and also making a copy of list using list comprehension, you can also use this for processing. So if let's say you have this numbers, my numbers, and then I want to add +1 to each of these and then put the result in another list, then I can do it here. Let's say I have my numbers. Let's say I have new numbers, or let's say results. I can say I +1 for I in my numbers. Or for us not to be confused, we can say number plus 1 for number in my numbers, like this. And then we bring our square brackets. So this one, there's supposed to be equal sign here. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. Let me just do it again for you. I'll say result equals my square brackets. I'll say number plus 1 for number in my numbers. So let's run this command. So now I can say results, and I'll get what 2, 3, 4, because 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, and that is what we have here. Okay, so that's how we do it. So just try to reproduce everything here, and then you'll be fine. Now let's look at the last item or the last activity here. So let's look at that, and that is what? A random selection of items from a list. Sometimes you have your list objects and you would like to, let's say, select items. Okay, randomly select items. Okay, for example, if you are playing a game, you may want to maybe write a program that selects, or a program that's, it's, let's say, a guessing game. Okay, and the guess is that the computer will randomly pick, let's say, a color, and then you also guess, and if the color is correct, then you also get some marks or whatever. So let's try with this. I'll just do this, because this random model is kind of how programming works, or how a gaming works. Sometimes you select random numbers, and maybe, and that will also lead to maybe some other information given, depending on what values are selected or what items are selected. So I'll show you how to select items from a list, like randomly. Okay, no particular order. So we are going to use two approaches: the random.choice and then random.runInt. So the random.choice here select the item themselves, and then the random.runInt uses indexing. Let's look at the first one here, random.choice. So here, what we do, we first have to import the random model. So we say from random import choice. And then let's have our colors. So let's say we are playing a guessing game. Okay, you are going to guess, the computer is also going to guess, and we will see if we are all correct. Then I can say choice, and then I can say colors. Okay, so it's randomly selects blue for me. Now if I do it again, I may get a different color. This time it's red. Okay, so that's how I do it. Now here I made mention of what? Random.choice. Okay, because you can also, it's part of the random model. So here, instead of just importing from random import choice, I could have just imported random and I also said random.choice. Okay, so I could have done it this way: import random, then I can say random.choice colors, and that also works. Okay, so that is why I had this random.choice, but you can use this approach, and you can also use this approach. So any of them works fine. So just try and then see what comes up. So when you write your games for guessing, then you can use random.choice to let the computer select the items. Okay, that's the first approach. Let's look at the second approach. The second approach here, we use the random.runInt. It's the same thing as what I've indicated here. Like, you can use the random and then select the runInt, or just select, move it, write it straight away like this. So I'll show you the two approaches. So the random.runInt, I brought it here because sometimes you would like to select items based on the indexing. Okay, so let's use the same colors again. Let's see. Okay, let's use my fruits. banana, orange, let's say apple. Let's say we have a program. Okay, so we want to give gifts to items. We want to give people fruits. Okay, so this time around, instead of using the choice to select the fruits, I want to use indexing. So if you are going to deal with indexing, if you are going to use indexing, then you need to first get your random integer. That's what the rand int is for. Okay, so random integers. So in that situation, you need to also make sure you have the lengths. Okay, the length or the number of items of the lists. Okay, so let's just do this. Let's first import. I'll say from random import rand int. I'll do this first, and then I'll also create my fruit list. So in that situation, I need a random integer. So I can say rand int 0 and then what's 3. So why am I saying 0, 3? Because I have this 3 values here. Or let me just use 2 because 2 is better, because we have 0, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm using 0 and then 2. So that's the range. Okay, so the rand int will allow you to pick a range of, You can do this, or you can also do this. It all works. Okay, but I'll just do a mixture of both. So I can say 0 and then 2 to this, and it depends on you, but I'll use this approach for now. So I can do this, and then when I say rand int, I'll get a value. So this value that I get, I can now query it here. So let's just do it again. So I can just say index, let's say list index equals, like I say, rand int 0, 2. And then this list index I have here, which is 1, I can now come and say my fruits list index, and then I'll get orange. Okay, so the index is what? 1. And that is what's here, 1, 0, 1. Okay, if I try again, let's see, I'll get a different value, which is 2. So I'll run it and I'll get my apple. So this is how we randomly select items from a list. So you can do this, or you can also do this. But of course, when you are using the rand int allows you to select integers. Let's say instead of, let's say, list, you are interested in getting random numbers, then you can use the rand int straight away. And then if, let's say, you have your lists, then you can use the choice. So if you have a list object like this, you don't need to use the rand int to first get the index and then come back and then query and then get the values. It's not necessary, but I just thought I'll show this approach just for your consumption. But if you have the list objects, then you can just go straight away and then just use the choice, the random.choice model to select your items. It's pretty straightforward and then simple. It's just a one-liner command. So that's how we do it. So with list objects, that's what I've done, but there are other data types that allows you to process things faster. Okay, so we have the queue, we also have numpy array. So you can also look at those ones. If you are dealing with lots of data sets and you want faster operations, then you can look at those data types as well to get your stuffs done. So that'll be all for this tutorial. So I will remind you to watch my tutorial on strings in case you have not watched it, just to also know how to manipulate strings. And then in the next tutorial, I'm going to cover dictionaries. So just make sure you come back to this channel and then watch that tutorial as well. I will leave all other links in the description box for you to check. And for those who are also interested in machine learning, I have some tutorials on machine learning. So just check the description box for the playlist and then just learn something new. So I'll see you next time.